Rain fell softly on the glass dome of Blackpool Tower. The year was 2157, and the old building stood tall against the gray sky. The tower looked different now than it had in the past. New metal supports held up its sides, and special devices kept it safe from the strong storms that often hit the coast. Hei-Jin Park stood at the entrance, looking up at the tower. Water drops ran down her clear travel umbrella as she watched the building's lights shine through the rain. She had traveled very far to get here, all the way from the Korean space colony near Mars. The journey had taken 3 weeks, even in the fastest spaceship. The doors of the tower slid open with a quiet sound. Warm air touched Hei-Jin's face as she stepped inside. The entrance hall was big and bright, with old pictures on the walls showing what Blackpool looked like 200 years ago. Hei-Jin noticed that even in those old photos, it was raining. "Welcome to the Blackpool Tower Ballroom," said a kind voice. An older woman stood behind a desk made of dark wood. "You must be one of our dancers from the colonies." She smiled and looked at her computer screen. "Hei-Jin Park." "Yes, that's me," Hei-Jin said. She folded her umbrella and tried to stay calm, but her heart was beating fast. She was really here, the most famous ballroom in the solar system. The woman gave her a small silver card. "This will let you use all the practice rooms. The anti-gravity platforms are on levels 3 through 6. Please be careful with those if you're not used to them." Hei-Jin held the card carefully. On Earth's colonies, they danced in different levels of gravity, but she had never tried the special platforms they had here in Blackpool. She had heard stories about them, how they could change gravity in the middle of a dance, how alien dancers used them to do moves that humans had never seen before. She took the old glass elevator up to the main ballroom. As it moved slowly upward, she could see the rain continuing to fall outside. The drops made quiet patterns on the glass. When the elevator stopped, Hei-Jin stepped out and froze in amazement. The ballroom was huge. Its ceiling was made of glass and metal, letting in the gray light from outside. Old chandeliers hung down, mixing their warm golden light with the cool daylight. The dance floor itself seemed to float, held up by glowing blue anti-gravity devices at each corner. A few other dancers were already there, practicing. Hei-Jin watched as 2 centaurians, tall beings with silvery skin, floated across the floor in a perfect waltz. Near them, a human couple was trying a new kind of tango that used the changing gravity to create exciting moves. Hei-Jin walked to the edge of the main floor. She was one of only 20 human dancers chosen for the Interstellar Ballroom Championships. Back in the Korean colony, everyone had been so proud when she got selected. Her grandmother had cried happy tears and given her the family's special dance fan, a beautiful thing made of dark wood and silver that was over 100 years old. The rain grew stronger outside, drumming on the glass ceiling. But inside the ballroom, the sound was soft and peaceful. Hei-Jin closed her eyes for a moment and listened. The rain seemed to be playing its own kind of music. When she opened her eyes again, she saw her reflection in one of the big mirrors on the wall. She stood straight and tall, wearing her simple black practice dress. She might be far from home, but she was ready. She was going to show everyone that human dancers could be just as amazing as any in the galaxy. She took her first step onto the anti-gravity floor. It felt strange, like walking on water that had somehow turned solid. But Hei-Jin kept her balance. The rain kept falling, and somewhere in this beautiful old building, her dance partner was waiting to meet her. Her journey was just beginning. The next morning, Hei-Jin arrived early at the practice room. Rain was still falling outside, making soft sounds against the windows. She had slept well in her hotel room, with the rain creating a gentle song all night long. She was stretching when the door opened. A tall young man walked in, wearing simple black dance clothes. He moved with the strange, light steps that Hei-Jin had seen in videos of colony dancers. This must be Do-Young Kim, her assigned partner. "Hello," he said with a small bow. "You are Hei-Jin Park." His voice was quiet but clear, like the rain outside. "Yes," she replied, bowing back. "You trained here in Blackpool." Do-young nodded. For 3 years now. The gravity here is different from what you know. We should start slowly. He walked to a control panel on the wall and pressed some buttons. The floor under them started to glow softly. Hejin felt herself become slightly lighter, as if she were standing in water. This is 30% Earth gravity, Do-young explained. It's what most alien dancers prefer. We need to learn to move like them while keeping our human style. They started with simple steps. Hejin was surprised at how different everything felt. A normal step turned into a floating motion. When she turned, her body wanted to keep spinning longer than it should. You're fighting the low gravity, Do-young said. He held out his hand. Let's try a basic waltz. Don't think about the steps, just feel the movement. Hejin took his hand. His grip was gentle but sure. As they started to dance, she noticed how he seemed to flow with the changing gravity. Every step looked normal, but carried them just a little further than it would on Earth. In the colonies, Hejin said as they danced, we practice in different gravity levels, but not like this, not while moving. Do-young smiled. That's why Blackpool is special. The old ballroom masters found a way to make gravity part of the dance. He guided her into a turn. Listen to the rain. Let it help you find the rhythm. Hejin closed her eyes for a moment. The rain was steady, like a soft drum. She let her body follow its beat. Suddenly, the strange floating feeling made more sense. It was like dancing in the rain itself, each drop helping to carry them across the floor. They practiced for hours. Do-young showed her how to use the low gravity to make their jumps higher, their spins longer, their movements softer. Sometimes they made mistakes and had to catch each other from floating away. But slowly they began to work together. You learn quickly, Do-young said during a break. They sat by the window, watching the rain make patterns on the glass. Most Earth dancers take weeks to adjust. My grandmother always said that dance is about adapting. Hejin replied. She took out her water bottle. She used to tell me stories about how people kept dancing even when they first moved to the colonies, how they changed the old moves to work in space. Do-young nodded. My parents say the same thing. That's why they helped save this building. He touched the old wooden floor gently. They believed we needed to keep places like this, even as we moved to the stars. Hejin looked at him with surprise. Your parents helped save Blackpool Tower. They were architects. When the sea levels rose, they designed the new supports and the gravity systems. He stood up and offered his hand again. Should we try something harder? I want to show you how we can use the rain's rhythm in our competition piece. Hejin took his hand, feeling more confident now. Outside, the rain kept falling, but it didn't sound sad or lonely anymore. It sounded like music waiting to be danced to, like a song that could connect Earth's past to humanity's future among the stars. Together, they began to dance again, their movements becoming more sure with each step. The rain played its endless song, and in the practice room of the old tower, 2 dancers from the stars started to find their own way of moving through space and time. The day of the preliminary rounds arrived at Blackpool Tower. The morning rain was heavier than usual, creating a steady rhythm against the glass dome. Hejin stood backstage with Do-young, watching the other competitors prepare. The main ballroom had been transformed. Large floating platforms now hung at different heights, connected by streams of anti-gravity light. The old chandeliers glowed with a soft blue light that matched the gravity beams. Judges from various planets sat at their elevated stations, their attention focused on the dance floor. The Centaurians are performing first, Do-young said quietly. He pointed to a pair of tall, silver-skinned beings who were stepping onto the lowest platform. Their long, graceful limbs seemed to shine in the blue light. Hejin watched carefully as the Centaurian couple began their dance. They moved like water, floating between platforms as if gravity did not exist. Their movements were beautiful but strange to human eyes. The rain outside seemed to match their rhythm perfectly. We dance forth, Hejin said, looking at the competition schedule. Her hands were steady, but her heart was beating fast. After the Proximans, and before the Mars colony pair, the Proximan dancers took the floor next. They had 4 arms each, and they used them all in their complex dance. The audience gasped as they created patterns in the air that human dancers could never make. He-Jin felt her confidence shake a little. Do-Young touched her shoulder gently. "Remember what we practiced," he said. "We are not trying to dance like them. We have our own strength." The Mars colony couple performed a modern style of waltz. They used the changing gravity well, but their movements looked mechanical, too perfectly planned. When they finished, the applause was polite but not excited. Then it was time. He-Jin and Do-Young walked onto the starting platform. The rain grew stronger outside, its sound filling the quiet ballroom. He-Jin took her position, remembering her grandmother's words about dancing from the heart. The music began, a classical earth waltz mixed with newer space colony rhythms. He-Jin and Do-Young started to move. Their first steps were traditional, the same way people had danced in this ballroom for hundreds of years. But as they moved to the higher platforms, they began to change their style. They used the low gravity to make their movements flow, but kept the human grace that made their dance special. The rain's rhythm helped them stay connected to Earth's traditions even as they danced among the stars. In the middle of their performance, something unexpected happened. The rain outside grew so strong that it changed the light coming through the dome. Instead of their planned movements, He-Jin and Do-Young began to follow the rain's natural rhythm. Their dance became more free, more real. The judges leaned forward in their seats. Even the alien competitors stopped their preparations to watch. No one had seen human dancers move quite like this before, combining Earth's classical grace with the freedom of space. When the music ended, He-Jin and Do-Young stood on the center platform, slightly out of breath but standing tall. The ballroom was silent for a moment. Then the applause began, growing louder and louder. "The scores will be announced in 1 hour," said the head judge, a being from Alpha Centauri. But their eyes held a look of approval that gave He-Jin hope. As they walked off the dance floor, other competitors came to speak with them. The Centaurians wanted to know about their timing. The Proximans asked about their use of traditional Earth movements. Even the Mars colony couple congratulated them. "We did something new today," Do-Young said as they sat down to wait for the results. Outside, the rain had returned to its gentle pattern, something that was both human and more than human. He-Jin nodded, feeling proud and tired and happy all at once. They had shown everyone that human dancers could create their own path to the future while honoring their past. Now they just had to wait to see if it would be enough to move forward in the competition. The afternoon following the preliminary rounds brought good news. He-Jin and Do-Young had advanced to the next stage of the competition. They now had 3 days to prepare for their next performance. The constant rain outside the Blackpool Tower created a peaceful atmosphere for their preparation. During their break time, many of the alien competitors gathered in the tower's rest area. The space was warm and comfortable, with large windows that showed the gray skies and falling rain. He-Jin sat with a group of curious dancers who had questions about Earth's traditions. "What is this object you carry?" asked one of the Centaurian dancers, pointing to the wooden fan in He-Jin's dance bag. The Centaurian's silver skin reflected the soft light from the rain-streaked windows. He-Jin carefully removed her grandmother's fan from its protective case. "This is a traditional Korean dance fan," she explained, holding it with respect. "It has been in my family for more than 100 years. The alien dancers moved closer to see. He-Jin opened the fan slowly, showing how the dark wood and silver decorations caught the light. In traditional Korean dance, the fan is like another part of the dancer's body. It can be a flower, a bird, or even the moon. "Would you show us?" asked a Proximan dancer. Their 4 arms were folded carefully to avoid touching anyone by accident. He-Jin stood up and moved to an open space near the windows. The rain provided a gentle background rhythm as she began a simple demonstration. She moved the fan in the traditional patterns her grandmother had taught her, making it flow like water and flutter like leaves in the wind. At the same time, in another corner of the room, Du Young was sharing his knowledge with a different group. He explained how humans had adapted their traditional dances for space colonies. He demonstrated how they used varying gravity levels to create new forms of movement while keeping the essence of Earth's dance traditions. "We learned to dance in all conditions," Du Young told them. "When the first colonists left Earth, they brought their music and their dances with them. Even in the hardest times, people kept dancing. It helped them remember who they were." The alien dancers listened with great interest. Many of them took notes or recorded his movements with their devices. They seemed fascinated by how humans had maintained their cultural practices while adapting to life among the stars. As the afternoon continued, the cultural exchange grew. The Centaurians demonstrated their floating dance technique, showing He-Jin and Du Young how they used their natural connection to gravity. The Proximans explained how their multiple arms allowed them to create complex patterns in space. "Your ways are different from ours," said the lead Centaurian dancer, "but they are beautiful. We see how much you value your past while moving into the future." The rain grew stronger outside, but inside the tower, the warmth of sharing and learning continued. He-Jin realized that this competition was about more than winning. It was about bringing humanity's artistic heritage to the stars and learning from other cultures in return. As the day came to an end, He-Jin and Du Young sat by the windows, watching the rain fall on Blackpool's streets. They had learned many new things, but more importantly, they had shared their own culture with beings from across the galaxy. "Tomorrow we will practice what we learned today," Du Young said thoughtfully. "Not to copy their ways, but to understand how we can make our own dance stronger." He-Jin nodded, holding her grandmother's fan. The rain played its endless song on the windows, reminding her of home, while the stars waited above the clouds, promising new possibilities for their dance. The quarterfinals began on a stormy morning. The rain fell harder than ever against Blackpool Tower's glass dome. Lightning flashed in the distance, creating strange shadows in the ballroom. He-Jin and Du Young arrived early to prepare for their performance. The competition schedule showed they would dance third. As they waited, they watched the Proximan couple perform a complex routine. The four-armed dancers moved perfectly between the anti-gravity platforms, their movements precise and graceful. Then something unexpected happened. During the second performance, the anti-gravity systems started to behave strangely. The platforms would suddenly drop or rise without warning. The Centaurian couple dancing at the time had to stop their performance. "Something is wrong with the gravity controls," announced the head judge. Their voice was calm but serious. "We must check the system before we continue." The technical team worked quickly, but they could not find the problem. The storm outside grew stronger, and the old building creaked in the wind. Some dancers began to worry that the competition would have to stop. He-Jin and Du Young watched as the judges discussed what to do. Then He-Jin remembered something from her training in the Korean space colony. There, they had learned to dance in changing gravity conditions. It was part of their daily life. "Du Young," she said quietly, "I think we can still dance." He looked at her with surprise. "In unstable gravity, it would be very dangerous. In the colonies, we practiced for emergencies. When the gravity systems would fail, we had to keep working. We learned to feel the changes coming and move with them." Du Young thought for a moment. The rain drummed against the glass above them, creating a steady rhythm. "You could teach me. Right now." He-Jin nodded. "We have to adjust our routine, but we can use the changing gravity to make our dance more interesting. Like turning a problem into an opportunity." They went to speak with the judges. At first, the alien judges were concerned about their safety. But He-Jin explained her colony training and how humans had learned to adapt to changing conditions in space. "We accept the risk," Du Young added, "and we think we can show something new, how humans face challenges in space." The head judge considered their request. Finally, they agreed, but with a warning. If the gravity became too unstable, they would have to stop immediately. He-jin and Do-young took their positions on the main platform. The technical team activated the system, and immediately they felt the strange shifts in gravity. But instead of fighting against it, they moved with it. When a platform suddenly dropped, they used the fall to create a dramatic dive. When gravity became too light, they turned it into graceful floating movements. The rain's rhythm helped them predict the changes, as if the weather itself was part of their dance. The audience watched in amazement. Even the other competitors stood silently, seeing how the human dancers turned a dangerous situation into art. He-jin and Do-young moved together perfectly, their bodies adapting to each change in gravity as if they had planned it. As they finished their performance, the storm outside began to calm. The last notes of their music faded away, and for a moment, the only sound was the gentle fall of rain on the glass dome. The judges looked at each other, then at their scoring panels. The head judge spoke first. "You have shown us something remarkable today. Not just skill in dancing, but the human ability to adapt and create beauty from difficulty." He-jin and Do-young bowed to the judges, then to each other. They had done more than just continue the competition. They had shown everyone why humans had succeeded in moving out among the stars, because they could dance with uncertainty and find grace in any situation. The day before the semifinals, He-jin decided to learn more about Blackpool Tower's history. The rain outside had become gentle again, making soft patterns on the windows as she walked through the building's old corridors. She found herself in a small museum room on the ground floor. The walls were covered with pictures showing how the tower had changed over 200 years. There were also displays about the people who had helped save the building during Earth's great climate changes. He-jin stopped in front of a large photograph. It showed a group of architects standing in front of the tower. The picture was taken 50 years ago, when they first started adding the new supports to keep the building safe from storms. She looked closely at the names written below the picture. Her eyes grew wide with surprise. There, in clear letters, were the names Min-ki Kim and Ji-ah Kim. She remembered what Do-young had said about his parents helping to save the tower, but she hadn't known they were such important architects. Just then, Do-young walked into the room. He saw He-jin looking at the photograph and smiled quietly. "I see you found them," he said, walking over to stand beside her. "Your parents didn't just help save the tower," He-jin said. "They led the whole project. Why didn't you tell me?" Do-young touched the glass covering the photograph gently. "They never wanted praise for their work. They said the most important thing was keeping this place alive for future dancers." He showed He-jin more pictures from the tower's history. His parents had done more than just add supports to the building. They had designed the anti-gravity systems that made modern space dance possible. They had found ways to protect the old wooden floors while adding new technology. "My parents believe that we shouldn't just preserve old buildings," Do-young explained. "We should help them grow and change, like living things. That's why they made the gravity systems adjustable. They wanted dancers to keep finding new ways to move." The rain grew stronger outside as they talked. He-jin realized that Do-young understood both worlds perfectly, the traditional beauty of Earth's dances and the new possibilities of space. This was why his dancing seemed so natural, even in changing gravity. "Is that why you became a dancer?" she asked. "To continue their work in a different way?" Do-young nodded. "They protected the building. I want to protect the art of dance itself, to show how it can change and grow while keeping its heart." He looked at the old pictures again. "Just like this tower, we have to be both strong and flexible." He-jin thought about their upcoming semi-final performance. Now she understood why Do-young had been so calm during the gravity system problems. He had grown up understanding how the building worked, how it could bend without breaking. "We should add something to our dance," she said slowly. "Something that shows both the old and the new, like your parents did with the tower." They spent the rest of the afternoon in the practice room, working on their routine. The rain provided a steady rhythm, as they tried new combinations of traditional steps and space colony movements. They created something that would show everyone how human art could grow and change while staying true to its roots. As evening came, they stood by the windows, watching the rain fall on Blackpool's streets. The tower felt different to Hejin now. It wasn't just an old building with new technology. It was a bridge between Earth's past and humanity's future, just like their dance. The morning of the finals brought a special kind of rain to Blackpool. It fell in a steady musical pattern against the tower's glass dome. Hejin stood at the window of the preparation room, listening to its rhythm. In a few hours, she and Do Young would perform their most important dance. The main ballroom had been transformed for the finals. The floating platforms now formed a spiral pattern in the air, connected by bridges of light. The old chandeliers glowed with all the colors of Earth's sunset. Thousands of people had come to watch, both humans and aliens from across the galaxy. "Are you ready?" Do Young asked, walking up beside her. He was wearing a new dance costume that combined traditional Korean designs with modern space colony materials. It seemed to change color as he moved, like the surface of a soap bubble. Hejin nodded. She touched the sleeve of her own costume, which matched his. "I think the rain is trying to tell us something today," she said. "Listen to how steady it is, like a heartbeat." They watched the other finalists perform. The Proximan couple created amazing patterns with their 4 arms, moving between platforms like water flowing upward. The Centaurian dancers seemed to float on air, their silver skin reflecting all the colors of the lights. Finally, it was time for Hejin and Do Young's performance. They took their positions on the lowest platform. Hejin held her grandmother's fan, which they had made part of their final dance. The rain grew slightly stronger, as if nature itself was paying attention. The music began softly, a mixture of traditional Korean melodies and modern space harmonies. Hejin and Do Young started with classical Earth steps, showing respect for their heritage. Then, as they moved to higher platforms, their dance began to change. They used the anti-gravity systems the way Do Young's parents had meant them to be used, not just for show, but to create new forms of movement. When they jumped between platforms, they seemed to float like cherry blossoms in the wind. Their turns combined the precision of Earth dance with the freedom of space. Hejin opened her grandmother's fan, and together they performed the new sequences they had created. The fan became like a third dancer, moving through space in ways that had never been seen before. The audience watched in complete silence, seeing how human traditions could grow into something new and beautiful. At the highest point of their dance, they performed the most difficult move. Do Young lifted Hejin as if she weighed nothing, and she seemed to hang in the air, the fan creating patterns of light around them. The rain's rhythm matched their movements perfectly, becoming part of their performance. As they returned to the lowest platform for their final steps, Hejin could feel that they had created something special. This wasn't just a dance that showed off their skills. It was a story about humanity's journey to the stars, about keeping their culture alive while learning to live in new ways. The music faded away, and for a moment, the only sound was the rain. Then the applause began. It started slowly and grew until it filled the whole ballroom. The alien judges stood up, showing their respect. Even the other competitors were clapping. The head judge's voice was clear and strong. "We have seen many wonderful performances today, but you have shown us something we have never seen before. How to honor the past while embracing the future. How to remain human while reaching for the stars." Hejin and Do Young bowed to the judges, then to the audience. Outside, the rain continued its gentle song, connecting the old tower to the sky above, just as their dance had connected Earth's traditions to humanity's future among the stars. 1 year had passed since the competition. The rain still fell on Blackpool Tower, but many things had changed. The old building had become even more famous across the galaxy as a place where different cultures could meet and share their art. Hejin and Do Young stood in their new classroom, watching their students practice. After winning the championship, They had decided to stay in Blackpool. They had opened the first interstellar Korean dance academy in the tower, teaching both humans and aliens about Earth's dance traditions. "Look at how well they work together," Hae-jin said softly to Do-young. In front of them, a young human girl was helping a Centaurian student learn a traditional fan dance. The silver-skinned alien moved with careful grace, trying to match the smooth movements of the fan. The academy had grown quickly. Students came from all the space colonies and alien worlds to learn how humans danced. But Hae-jin and Do-young taught more than just steps and movements. They showed their students how to keep their own cultural traditions while learning from others. Do-young's parents had visited the academy last month. They were proud to see how their son had helped their dream grow. The tower they had saved was now not just a building, but a bridge between worlds. The anti-gravity systems they had designed were being used in ways they had never imagined. "My mother cried when she saw the Proximan students performing the traditional Korean spring dance," Do-young told Hae-jin. "She said this was better than any award we could have won." Today was a special day of the academy. Hae-jin was teaching her grandmother's fan dance to a group of new students. The rain played its gentle song on the windows as she opened the old fan. It had become a symbol of their school, something beautiful from Earth's past that still had meaning in humanity's future. "The fan is like humanity itself," Hae-jin explained to her students. "It can be strong or gentle. It can change its shape but keep its nature. It can tell many stories while remaining true to itself." As she demonstrated the movements, Hae-jin remembered her first days in Blackpool. How strange and frightening everything had seemed then. Now the old tower felt like home. The constant rain that had once seemed gloomy was now a comfort, a reminder that some things remained steady even as the world changed. The academy was preparing for its first public performance. Students from 20 different worlds would dance together, each bringing something from their own culture to create something new. They would perform in the same ballroom where Hae-jin and Do-young had won the championship. "We are writing a new chapter in the story of human dance," Do-young said as they watched their students practice. "Not just preserving it, but helping it grow." Hae-jin nodded, touching the old wooden fan gently. Outside, the rain continued its endless dance against the glass dome of Blackpool Tower. Inside, beings from across the galaxy moved together, learning from humanity's past and adding their own steps to its future. The tower stood strong against the weather, its old walls protecting new dreams. In its halls, the music of Earth mixed with songs from distant stars. And in its highest room, where the rain's rhythm was clearest, Hae-jin and Do-young continued to teach the dance of two worlds, the grace of Earth and the freedom of space, moving together in perfect harmony.